All right, so I've hit live stream. I just need you to give me 1 second just so I can confirm the stream.
Perfect. Thank you, Brandy.
All right, there you go.
Looking good. Okay. Thank you, Brandy. All right, so I'll call the meeting to order. Welcome everyone to the March meeting of the Active Transportation Sustainability Advisory Committee. I would like to acknowledge that many of us are gathered on the territory of the Anishinaabe people, which include the Odawa, Ojibwe, and Potawatomi nations, who are collectively known as the Three Fires Confederacy. As I like to remind myself in the work that we do at this committee, it's important that we recognize the history and the ongoing impact of colonialism on this land, and also the role that Indigenous peoples have played as stewards of this land since time immemorial. And that we keep that in mind in everything that we do, working in that spirit of reconciliation and respect with all Indigenous nations and peoples. So welcome everyone. We will do a round of introductions here today quickly. My name is Keenan Owen. I'm the Ward 2 Councillor and the Chair of the committee. Happy to be here this month, and we'll do it popcorn style. So nominate the next person after you've introduced yourself. So go ahead, John, if you want to introduce yourself.
Thanks, Keenan. So John Northcote, committee member. I'm a transportation engineer by trade. Longtime Barrie resident, was born in Barrie, and try to cycle to, meetings everywhere I need to go when possible in Barrie. So I'm a big AT enthusiast. And I will pass on to Sarah.
Hello, my name is Sarah. I'm the Climate Change Project Associate at Simcoe Muskoka District Health Unit within the Environmental Health Department. I am supporting Christine Bushy's team for the foreseeable future as her team works on COVID-19.
And we'll go to Kelly next. Sorry.
Sorry.
It's all good.
Thank you, Keenan. I'm Kelly Patterson Mcgrath. I am a Barrie citizen as well, very active in our community and supportive of everything transportation and green and all kinds of good things. So I'm happy to be here.
Thanks, Kelly. Your mic is cutting out here and there.
Is it? Okay.
Yeah, that's better.
Is that better? Okay. Yeah.
Definitely.
So I'm going to pass it along to Wilf.
Thanks, Kelly. Good morning, everybody. I am Wilf Steimel from the Electric Vehicle Society in Canada, and I will pass it along to Anne-Marie.
Good morning, everyone. Thanks, Wilf. Anne-Marie Kungle, Ward 3 City Councillor, and very excited to see the General Committee passed Bike the Night. So waiting for that to be ratified, but great to see the work and efforts of this group migrating to Council and getting supported. And do I have a tag? Did Rob go yet?
No, go ahead,
Rob, over to you.
Thanks, Anne-Marie, and thank you for the opportunity to present to the group this morning. So I'm the Tourism Development Coordinator with the city. I work within Economic and Creative Development team, and I'm going to be talking wayfinding. So, buckle up, it'll be fun for a few minutes anyway. And so I'm the lead on that project. So I will pass it to, we got two Kevins. So I'll go Kevin Bradley, my buddy.
Okay, cool. Waiting for my video here. Thanks, Rob. Good morning, everybody, again. Welcome to March, Pancake Tuesday, if everyone forgot. I'm the manager of Parks Planning and Development in the Development Services Department. So we are everything park design, master planning, strategic planning, and policy. And I think with that, I need to turn it over to my Parks colleague, Kevin. Thank you.
Good morning, the other Kevin. See, we're even saving the same backgrounds together just to make it extra confusing. So I'm Kevin Ranking, the manager of Parks and Forestry Operations. So I usually attend these to provide any input and responses on information about operational issues and operational questions. And I'll pass it on to whoever's next on the line who hasn't gone, Sandra Brunet, probably.
Thanks, Kevin. Good morning. Happy Tuesday. My name is Sandra Brunet, and I'm the Associate Director of Business Performance and Environmental Sustainability. We are responsible for business process improvements and environmental sustainability, circular economy, environmental compliance, and environmental risk management. My role today is to provide any information you'd like to know about the city's circular economy program. Thank you. Is there anybody left?
Eric.
Andy, right?
Eric, on to you, Eric.
Go ahead, Eric. Although he has a sick cat and a sick daughter,
Sorry.
so okay.
Yes. Eric Jacoby Hawkins, until recently 20-year board member of Living Greenberry, and I now serve as the off-site institutional memory for that organization.
Missed Andy, right?
Great. Yes. Thank you, Eric. And Andy, go ahead.
Hi, I'm Andy Pellin with Living Greenberry. I think I've met almost everyone here. So nice to see you all.
Thanks, Andy. And of course, Brandy Thompson is our wonderful representative from the clerk's office, helping us run these meetings and make sure they go smoothly. Thank you so much. Okay, thank you for that. I like it when we all know where we're coming from at the beginning of these meetings. I know sometimes it feels a little repetitive. Before we jump right into the agenda, I do want to address, Wilf sent an email to myself and Brandy and Anne-Marie about the structure of our meetings, and I think he had a really good point that we have focused a lot on the active transportation side of our work, but there's the whole area of sustainability as well that we have a focus as well as a committee. So he had suggested maybe breaking the meeting up into 2 parts, 1 hour to active transportation, 1 hour to sustainability. So that's one idea. We can also make a concerted effort over this year to maybe think of some more agenda items or topics to bring to future meetings that focus more on that sustainability side. Because I know we have really focused on that AT side, which is great. But we probably could use a bit of balance there. I don't know if Wilf, you have any other suggestions or ideas on areas of focus that you think we need to talk about in future meetings, but I really appreciated you bringing that up.
Yeah, thanks, Keaton. I appreciate you raising it this morning. Yeah, as Keaton said, I think we the title of this committee, and I think its mandate is twofold, and the pendulum seems to have been on one side of that for a little while, and the sustainability part, I think, is something we're all very passionate about, and particularly with yesterday's IPCC renewed report about the urgency that we address sustainability from a climate change perspective. If anything, I think the time is right for this committee to really set its mind to what the city of Barrie can do in sustainability. And my other thought, Keenan, for your consideration and for the committee's consideration, is that we consider setting a work plan for the year and set some objectives for this committee to say at the end of this year, we will have brought a certain number of proposals to council to consider in certain areas. And those might include a blend of active transportation, but I think we should also set some objectives on what do we want to recommend to council in terms of sustainability. And that we have a work plan at the beginning of each year that we use to hold ourselves accountable to say, are we on track? Are we actually accomplishing something here that is leading to the action that we envisioned? And if not, next year we revise that for next year's work plan. So just putting that out there, hopefully for some discussion.
Thanks, Wolf. And I think that's a great suggestion. So before, I think it might have been before, Wolf, you were appointed to the committee, there was some work done on a work plan for the remainder of the term for this committee. I think when the pandemic hit, it just kind of got lost in the fray there. But we do have some documents with some great ideas. That's probably a good starting point for us to get back on track in that way. Kelly, I see your hand if you want to speak to that. Go right ahead.
Sorry, I actually wanted to thank Brandy for putting together the Excel list of recommendations. Thank you so much, Brandy. Wilf, I think there's a couple of items on there from a sustainability perspective. So what I'm seeing is that these items get listed and we get recommendations from the committee, but I'm not seeing a lot of closure on the items. So they kind of left, make great recommendations as a committee, but I'm not seeing it coming full circle. So there's a couple in there, a few in there, that we could look at from a sustainability perspective as well to see where they got dropped off or didn't get addressed or what stage they're at, because a lot of them are pending through the recommendations. So perhaps, if we wanted to start with something, from a sustainability kind of breakdown, we could look at a couple of those items just as a suggestion. It's a good suggestion, Wilf, as well. I totally agree.
That's a great point, Kelly, especially in our final year of our term, to kind of make sure we follow up on all the pieces, the important pieces that we've already done some work on and some discussion on. So that's a great place to start. So in advance of next month's meeting, I'll definitely review that. We can all review those documents and we can craft some agenda items based on that and make sure the relevant staff are invited to the meeting to follow up on the progress of those items for sure. Do we feel like that's a good start to review that Excel sheet, review that work plan that had previously been worked on, and then maybe keep in mind the sustainability side as we submit new agenda items for next month? And again, a reminder, agenda items are welcome at any time, and don't be afraid to ask for an idea to be put on the agenda. I see Sandra's hand just went up there. Go ahead, Sandra.
Is there a possibility to share that Excel spreadsheet with myself? Because there has been a lot going on in sustainability and we have a lot of plans for 2022. And I just want to make sure that we are aligned with the direction you want to go. And if we're not, we will see if adjustments can be made, if that's okay.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Sure.
Thank you.
Sure. Anne-Marie?
If it's worth the mention, so at the Seniors Advisory Committee, we keep a couple minutes at the end for a quick roundtable, and it creates a really great opportunity for us to catch things that are really for information, or then trigger a one-on-one contact with any synergies. But I also really appreciate that we've got amazing staff power and intelligence around at the table, and sometimes we're only pulling on them when there's a question related to their portfolio, but we're not necessarily leaving space for them to identify things that are happening that might be of interest to the group and may lend itself to coming on the agenda. So that might just create a bit more of a opportunity to be aware of what's happening, but also to allow staff to identify things that might be of interest to the group.
That's a great suggestion. Yeah, absolutely. We welcome any sort of staff feedback on areas that we should be paying attention to. Wilf, go ahead.
Keaton, so I'm just wondering what your thoughts are and what the group's thoughts are to creating sort of that half and half structure where we say half of the committee, we specifically set aside time for active transportation and set aside time, ideally equally or close to equally for sustainability. And if we're short on agenda topics on sustainability in a given month, that that kind of lights the spark, sparks the fire, whatever the analogy is, for us to go out and look for more topics and be more active in driving the structure of the dialogue to make sure that we're inclusive of that.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm not sure if other committee members have thoughts, but I like that idea of sort of trying to make the meetings have that structure, and but still allowing the flexibility if we get into a deep discussion on one area or the other. Any other thoughts on that before we move into our agenda? Not seeing anything. So I like the goal of like aiming for that, and so we'll try to have a balance of agenda items and keep the active transportation part to the first hour, sustainability to the second hour, or vice versa. Maybe we can switch it up every month. I think that's a great suggestion. Okay, and if you have any other thoughts beyond this meeting, feel free to reach out, and we can consider that. But with that, we'll move into the presentation on the wayfinding strategy. And I believe, Rob, you're taking the reins on that. So go ahead, Rob. Thanks so much for being here.
Great, thank you. So I'm going to hopefully share my screen. And I sometimes struggle with this going back and forth between Teams and Zoom. So cross your fingers. Okay. So do you see a wayfinding strategy slide? Oh, success. Okay, wonderful. Okay, we're off to a good start. So I'll just see if I can actually put it into presentation mode. There we go. So I apologize. I have another monitor going here, so you're going to see, the side of my face for a bit. I thought what I'd do is provide a brief overview of the project, including goals and objectives, timelines, and what's happened thus far, and then do my best to answer any questions you might have. So for this project, the RFP went out in the fall of 2021, and the successful consulting firm Cygnus Design Group Inc. began the project in January. So, we're still early stages of the project. Okay, so we'll start with the project overview. At a high level, we're looking at really 3 phases, and we're in phase 1. And that phase 1 is about the development of the wayfinding strategy itself, and we're looking to wrap that up in end of May, beginning of June. And then phase 2 will begin in 2022, and we're anticipating installation to take place in 2023. And as some of you, maybe all of you know, the wayfinding strategy was identified as a priority in the Tourism Master Plan from 2020, as well as the Parking Strategy Report, also from 2020. And the wayfinding was also identified as a key item for the city's COVID-19 Recovery Action Plan. And also, as you can see, aligns with Council's priorities of growing the economy, supporting a vibrant and safe downtown, and improving the ability to get around. So moving on to the project goals and objectives, and this is what we use to direct the project and provide direction for the consulting team. So the main goals and objectives are to direct residents and tourists to downtown Barrie and the attractions within, from key travel decision points, so particularly along the 400 and major arteries into the downtown. Additionally, we want the strategy and ultimately signage to help pull waterfront users to the downtown for shopping and dining, to orient people within the waterfront and the downtown areas so they know where they're going, and provide direction to available parking, and then finally increase or improve signage that will ultimately increase visitation from the waterfront, marine and waterfront trails to other specific features as well as the downtown. So those are the kind of the overarching goals and objectives to guide the consulting team. And I should also add that we have a working group as well as a management steering committee, of which Kevin Bradley is part. Project deliverables for phase one. There are three main ones, and so we're in this audit and assessment component right now. So the consultants have been collecting input from stakeholders both internally and externally, and the external components thus far have been through Tourism and BIA, and we'll be expanding that out hopefully the end of this week with a public engagement survey through the Building Barrie website. They've also come up for one site audit to do both an inventory and an audit of the signage and just get a feel for the entire waterfront in downtown, particularly again coming in off the 400 through the major arteries. So that's the first piece, is that audit and assessment report. And then the second is the recommendations report. We can actually see kind of with the timing of things that these are going to dovetail both from a timing standpoint, but from a content standpoint too. So there's probably going to be considerable, I wouldn't say overlap, but even see almost like the audit and assessment report flowing right into the recommendations report. So that we're looking at them taking the information from the stakeholder engagement, their own assessment, their own research into best practices, and then rolling it up into a recommendations report, which will then have the opportunity to review and provide feedback, and then ultimately coming up with the strategy development report in May, probably towards the end of May of this year. So that would then wrap up the phase one piece, which is the strategy. And so that's kind of where we're at. I will pause in a sec just for questions and do my best to answer. But we are also really looking for your input as well. And so, as I mentioned, we will be launching this web page and a survey that's part of that on the Building Barrie page later this week. So however it makes most sense, probably through Brandy, I guess, to once that's launched, to ensure that all the committee members have that link and can then provide input into the strategy. So that's the short and sweet of it, I guess. I'll stop sharing, and there we go.
Thank you so much, Rob. We really appreciate that.
My pleasure.
And I'm happy that we caught you at this stage in the process too. I think there's some good opportunities for our committee to have to give you some feedback from an active transportation perspective. Any questions for Rob or comments on the presentation from committee members? Kelly, go ahead.
Thank you, Rob. I really appreciate that information. I was wondering how this wayfinding signage is going to help or connect the length of routes around the waterfront. So, to ensure that we know that it's a 5 kilometer, 2 kilometer, et cetera, for cycling. I was just wondering if that was taken into consideration. And can I also say thank you very much? And I know Kevin Bradley had mentioned that the city is opening up more public information centers for these types of projects. And I have to say, I really appreciate that. And I share as much as I can on social media and try to get more people engaged in having a say in this. And I think it's really important. And I thank the city for really doing this. So I'm interested in the cycle destinations and cycle routes, whether it's, could be walking as well, and how that's going to integrate into our regular cycling network. And there, that's another thing that I'd like to see things be really looking like very similar signage. So when we're developing the signage, that we may not do the cycling signage for a while, but hopefully everything will look the same. So I was interested in the actual destination and routes.
Yeah, that's so great question. Thank you for that. So there's as part of I guess the direction for the consulting team, we were really interested in looking at all modalities, modals of transportation, and active transportation being a strong one. The tourism master plan has a real focus on active transportation and really trying to encourage visitors as well as obviously residents to leverage the trails and pathways. So that is an important part of this. And it's, I would say it was also one of the attractive pieces about for us as a review committee for the consultants, because it was something that they were pretty focused on too. So it's again, like, there haven't been any recommendations or anything thus far from the consultants. That will be coming up soon, but that's something that we'll be looking to see for sure. So I think I can say that we're going to be ensuring that that's in there in some capacity, but what the consultants come back with initially, I can't say at this point.
Just to follow up, if I may, too, I know you're working with Tourism Barrie as well, because I know they're really good. They've got a couple of cycling routes, tours through the city of Barrie to historic buildings, and I've noticed these signs downtown in the summer. So I think having their feedback is really important too, because I think the signage can also focus on promoting historic routes, that type of thing too. So I think that's great that you guys are also engaging with Tourism Barrie.
Yeah, so and Tourism Barrie and the BIA are both on the working group. So they're going to be providing lots of input throughout the process. And you're absolutely right. I mean, that the cycling piece is an important part of the tourism offerings, if you like, for enhancing that visitor experience. And Kelly, just coming back to what you were saying at the beginning about the importance of the signage being kind of consistent, that's a real priority too, so that it's not like the dog's breakfast of signage. It's easier to kind of there's consistency throughout, which will make it a whole lot easier for navigation, both from a resident standpoint as well as from a visitor standpoint.
Great, thank you. I have John next, and then Andy up after. Go ahead.
And thanks, Rob, for the presentation. A couple questions. One was, is it fair to say that the scope includes all of Barrie, but the focus is on waterfront and downtown? Is that the idea? We'll cover.
Yeah, that's a great question. I'm glad you asked that, because obviously to start with, to have something that would be citywide would be pretty overwhelming, and so it was decided to focus at least initially on the downtown, but with the expectation that there would be rollout, a progressive rollout throughout the city over time. And so yeah, that's my bad. I should have said phase 4 through whatever. Would be more about the expansion throughout the city, but yes, it'd be important to have that consistency throughout the city, but starting in the downtown and the waterfront. Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense. Yeah, and the kind of follow-up question, if it's okay, would be, yeah, I guess I like the idea of the wayfinding signage at key locations, if to direct active transportation, but also as an identifier of how long it might take for a route. And I know that's difficult because different people bike and walk at different speeds. But I like the idea of, I find it's sometimes a myth of how long it takes to bike through different spots. So if you're at Allendale Rec Center, how long it takes you to get to the waterfront by bike is sometimes surprisingly short when you actually, and then hopefully people can see that and make better choices. So that was one comment. Yeah.
Yeah, I really like that suggestion. I think it's a great suggestion. Yeah.
Thanks, John. Go ahead, Andy.
Yeah, I'm not sure if this is the time to put out a new idea or to find out if this is something that's already on the table. But I'd really like to see the creeks labeled in Barrie, the 6 major creeks. And in particular, I'd love to see 6 signs along the waterfront where they outlet, but also corresponding that look the same somewhere upstream. Because I think that vitality, like if you imagine that you pass Kids Creek, you see, oh, that's Kids Creek. And then you see on Cundles Road, you see another sign that looks exactly like that, says Kids Creek. And eventually, without even saying any words, people will understand the concept of watershed and the concept of what they're doing on their property is going to end up in the lake. So that'd be one idea I'd love to push forward if we could.
I think that's a great suggestion, and I have just written it down. So I'll be happy to bring that forward to the consultants for sure. But again, as mentioned, there will be an opportunity for the committee as well as everyone to provide input through the Building Barrie website. So as soon as we have that launched, I'll make sure you get the link. Great suggestion. Thank you.
Yeah, it's a really cool idea, Andy.
Yeah.
Thanks for bringing that up. I do have a couple questions as well, Rob. And committee members, if you have questions, still feel free to raise your hand. Is transit on the working group as well?
Yes.
Okay, that's fantastic.
Yes.
And transportation planning as well. Brett Greatrix, is he around at that table?
Well, he is having input. Yeah, in fact, I was in communication with him last week. So it just Brett will definitely be involved for sure.
Okay, fantastic. Yeah. I think agreeing with Kelly and John about the sort of highlighting the active transportation routes, travel times. I think that's really key. We should be using, in my opinion, this as an opportunity to actually encourage and highlight modes of transportation other than personal vehicles. I think it's a powerful tool, one of the few tools out there in terms of education and awareness that we can use to encourage AT modes. What about direction? So you mentioned wayfinding to parking. Has the working group considered wayfinding to bike racks, for example?
I don't think specifically that has come up, at least not to my knowledge, but just added that to the list too. So yeah, I mean, that's it's the type of parking. So exactly. And if we're trying to encourage active transportation, cycling, that ensuring people know where they can access bike racks makes a lot of sense to me.
That's great.
Great. Thank you.
All right. Any other questions or comments from members of the committee at this time? Again, there's going to be that opportunity for public feedback through Building Barrie once that's posted. Anne-Marie, go ahead.
Just a quick comment, and it's more of just an appreciation of the role that the city created and Rob's contributions there. So glad to see, Rob, that you're connected to this committee formally and able to bring that forward. And just wanted to say what a pleasure it is to have your skill set with us.
That's very kind, Emery. Thank you so much. And it is a real pleasure. And I kind of looking around, Sarah and I have worked together, and Sandra and I have been chatting quite a bit about sustainable tourism. And so I think there's some real great synergies between what's not just this project, but what's in my portfolio in tourism. And so for better or worse, you probably see me back here.
For better, I think, but your health promotion and I think just value around that, I think, will be an asset to a lens that you bring to this this work.
Oh, thank you so much. That's very kind.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely, agreed completely. Kelly, go ahead, and then John.
Just quickly, Rob, I was considering, I like to paddle a lot on the lake in the summer. And I was considering, when I go to the little parks along the lake, and I'm not quite sure which park I'm at, just from a signage, because you also have people accessing from water as well. So just keeping that in mind when we're trying to do some wayfinding around, hey, there's a, downtown for the restaurants, I'm coming in by boat or by paddleboard or by kayak or whatever it is and I'm arriving. So I think just keeping that in mind as well, because you also have people coming in via water as well.
Absolutely. Yeah. Great. Thanks, Kelly.
Great point. The forgotten active transportation mode.
Yeah.
Kayaking. Okay, go ahead, John.
Thanks. Wondering if we should be linking this on our AT page. Should we kind of had the idea that we're going to have stuff connected there. So anything that's related, we link it in. I don't know which responsibility that is or who that falls on, but.
That's a great idea. Brett was our point of contact on the webpage before. So I can make a note to reach out to him especially once the Building Barry consultation is posted. We can link that from the page. That's a great idea.
Great idea. Thank you.
Okay. Any other comments or questions for Rob? Oh, look good. Awesome. Thank you so much for being here, Rob. We're very excited about this opportunity with this project and look forward to learning more about it.
Wonderful. Well, thank you for letting me invade the meeting, and yeah, I look forward to communicating more in the very near future.
That's great. Thank you so much.
Thanks, everyone.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Okay, up next we've got Bike the Night. Is there an update from our fantastic subcommittee who's taking the lead on this, or who wants to take a stab at this one?
Thanks, and we're excited, as Anne-Marie suggested, that last night we've got at least primary approval for support at Counsel, and next week I'm sure it will go through. We have our meeting this week on Thursday to really get going. So we're going to be chatting about marketing pieces and structure and just getting things on the agenda and focusing on getting those items good. So that's kind of the only update that I have. I'm not sure if John or Anne-Marie has anything else to add, but we'll certainly have more next time to chat about once we have our initial kind of get together this week.
That's great. And committee members, if there's any questions or comments, feel free to ask away now. I did at a library board meeting recently, we were informed that the library is considering a bookmobile on a bicycle, and I raised the Bike the Night event as a possible promotion opportunity. We're not sure if we're going to have the bicycle by then, but either way, the library expressed interest in being involved in promoting the event and attending the event. So just a note for the group there. They're very excited about it.
We're on our stakeholder list, so it is growing, which is great. And I think what we meet Thursday as a group, and then I can already share with members, I was going to bring it there, but for all, we're already seeing that the interest in this has already identified some lights that have been identified and put aside for our event. So I'll share that with the small group, but love to hear, and maybe if we can carve out more time at the next meeting agenda, so we can actually identify a bit more of that. By that time, I imagine we will have the ratification vote through Council, and then we can actually look at some more formalized next steps forward around stakeholder engagement, brainstorming ideas, and already had some great comments back on the route from last meeting. I'm not sure, John, if there's anything else. The route still stands, I believe, right? We got the feedback, but it's as presented.
yeah, I think we just kind of set on the route and the dates we're set on, and yeah, hopefully we can get some email materials going forward where we can sort of a template email anyway that we can give to the group, then they can send it out to anyone they think, and sort of customize it however they think is necessary. Yeah.
That's great. And Sarah, we can connect with you too on that, because we did want to make sure, I'm not sure if you were on the last meeting, the branding will align to the health units branding. Okay.
Perfect. That's great.
Cool. Love that. All right. Anything else on the Bike Tonight piece before we move on? Not seeing anything. Awesome. Thank you so much to all of you for putting in that extra effort on that. I'm really excited about it. Okay, Crompton Park update. Anne-Marie, is there an update for this meeting? Or?
No, that'll hold as a standing just until later spring. Thanks.
Perfect. That's great. Okay, so circular economy waste collection calendar. That was an item that we had discussed as a potential opportunity for active transportation and sustainability promotion. So Sandra is here, and I'm not sure, what opportunities exist for our committee to provide feedback on what goes into those calendars in terms of promotions for active transportation and sustainability. Awesome. Good example there. So Sandra, I don't know if you want to take a second to kind of explain the timelines on the waste collection calendar and any opportunities for us to suggest ideas from an active transportation and sustainability perspective.
So timing is perfect. In the next month or so, staff will be getting together to talk about the format. If we need to change any of the format, what content we want to put in, how do we want to approach it. To this point in the last few years, it's become more of a community and waste calendar. And so as a result, the reins have been moved or passed over from waste to access berry. So all the stakeholders are still part of moving that forward. So if we want to put more sustainability stuff in it or circular economy stuff, now would be the time to do it. I would just have to bring in Sherry Harris and chat with her about any thoughts you want on a addition, subtraction, division, or multiplication to this calendar.
Okay, that's great. Glad we didn't miss the bus on providing any feedback on that. I think we had discussed as a committee briefly, potentially highlighting on the calendar like bike week or bike to work day and stuff like that. Were there any other ideas that committee members had or questions about that calendar while we have this on the agenda? Anne-Marie?
Well, every year it just gets better. And so I love the approach, Sandra. I want to compliment you on that. But I think to that point too was, so I'm looking at June, and if there are things that are annual, like the Pollinator Week and Berries of Bee City, NOMO May, and those pieces, and I may have missed the NOMO May, but looking at just that week that can trigger people to kind of go to the website to investigate if there's a flag to say check out activities for Pollinator Week on the city website. So it doesn't have to be anything that ages out from currency. And I believe we saw that Living Green events were captured, and hoping that continues with the themes for the 10 months out of the year, and seeing some great synergy with that. And I know, I'm not sure, Andy, I think you're going to talk to an event, but I see Communities in Bloom also highlighted. So I think there's a really nice representation there, and didn't know if there is a copy of our calendar that's echoed online that is digital. So we can actually push to register for the community garden plots, register to the Communities in Bloom. And so while the calendar is static and is a great tool, and I have residents who look for it and I deliver them if they don't get them, electronically, even if there's a mapping of the calendar that can be echoed and have hyperlinks that can actually drive to an outreach method, drive to our active transportation website, and might also kind of substitute in when we're doing things like that just come up annually, like the tree bylaw and the cycle berry, we can actually put the pick events in the calendar. So I'm not sure if that's there, but that's just something that comes into consideration as more and more people are kind of linking to, maybe it's something all city partners can actually have a link to the Barrie website, but maybe it's to the Barrie calendar. Because sometimes I even find while we're updating different levels of our website, we can get a little lost around where you find things, but the calendar is always a really nice top box picture. So that's one comment. My other comment is only if it's relevant. The current change that was on City Council with the app on Ping Street, which we use for garbage collection, echoes a lot of what's in the calendar from a resident engagement. And I know that we've just approved in concept the movement forward for the city to actually look at a vendor for a different type of platform. And we've just launched serviceberry.ca. So I didn't know when we're looking at the vendor to replace the app, how well that will echo the compliments around some of the services. Maybe that will do what I'm thinking about around showing the calendar per month. But I still see the calendar platform as being used by Park Place 55 for programming for our rec centers, and it is something that's echoed in the paper. So maybe that's just a way we could leverage an existing tool in a different platform.
So I just so I understand, I think I heard that you'd like almost the calendar to be the one-stop shop. A quick link to the calendar on the new website. And then from there, there's links in that digital calendar to take us to events and active transportation and sustainability topics, websites, that kind of thing.
Yeah, I think just so you've got this tool that kind of still looks the same and feels the same, but can be edited in time electronically to push some of those things that still tie to I think the circular economy and the different areas where this is not necessarily to be filled with different sports and rec. Maybe that's a whole different thing, but that this actually continues to be something that meets the intention, but can also be available to push people to different parts of our website.
It's a great idea. Yeah. So Access is running the new update. I understand they're going to reach out to the stakeholders to get some opinions, but what I'll do is I will actively engage Sherry with your ideas and see if we can get that moving sooner than later.
Great, thanks.
That's fantastic. We really appreciate that, Sandra. John, I saw you had your hand up earlier. Did you have a thought or?
But I realized they've already got it in there, so they already had me in there.
Awesome. Any other thoughts on this piece? I'm not seeing any. All right, that's great. Thank you so much, Sandra, for going to bat on our behalf with Access Barrie.
No worries. It's my pleasure.
That's great.
Thank you.
Okay, so next up on the agenda, if we're good to move on, not seeing anything else, perfect, is Urban Forest Concept 330-300 rule, and that was put on the agenda by Andy. So let Andy take it away and introduce this item.
Okay, well, I'm actually I have a presentation. When Brandy asked me, do I have a presentation? I'm like, maybe. If I have time, I will. If I don't, sorry. So are you guys seeing my screen that says intro to the 330? Okay.
Yes.
And I will do slideshow mode. So you're still seeing it? You're good?
Perfect.
You're not seeing my notes? Okay,
Yeah.
good. All right, well, should be, thanks folks for this. This will be a very quick and dirty introduction to a new urban forest concept that recognizes the incredible value urban trees provide to us. So starting with the basics, there are so many benefits of urban forests. You all know these because you're on this committee, so they're just sort of glossed over, but essentially trees make us healthier, happier, richer, and can buffer us from some of the worst effects of climate change. Urban cover is vitally important, so we need to find ourselves, so we often find ourselves trying to figure out, well, how much do we need? We discuss targets and percentages for our city. Is 20% enough, 25%, 30%? I can tell you that it can never be too high, but it can easily be too low. Perhaps more importantly, we should be thinking about enhancing our understanding of how we use these targets and start thinking about the quality of urban forest cover and green space. And even more useful, we should be looking at the targets through a lens of equity and making sure that everyone, regardless of where they live in Barrie, has access to quality green space. This is why I wanted to share with you a particularly clever idea I heard about at an arborist conference back in December. The 330-300 rule was proposed by a professor at UBC, whose name I won't try to pronounce. Good luck with that if you want to. And it's considered a powerful way of communicating the benefits of urban forests and green spaces to everyone, politicians, experts from other sectors, and citizens. It's a rule of thumb that's rooted in a lot of the research linking human physical and mental health benefits directly to trees and urban forests. Right now, at the beginning of what is hopefully the end of COVID lockdowns, we have an opportunity to jump on some of the social momentum caused by the pandemic. The full effects of these past 2 years on people's mental health hasn't even fully come to light yet. But because of these lockdowns, there's also an increased awareness of the importance of urban trees and green spaces. And over these past 2 years, many people flocked to parks, environmental protection areas, and small parkettes throughout our city and have developed a newfound appreciation for green space. Rules like this can be a very useful tool to keep the momentum going. The word rule is a bit misleading. It's more like a useful guideline or tool. So one commonly used rule of thumb tool in urban forest planning is the 10-20-30 rule. This rule is used to aim for good tree species diversity and to make sure that we're not leaving ourselves vulnerable to a species specific pest or disease that could wipe out most of our trees. Imagine if Barrie's forest cover was all ash and elm. We would have been in bigger trouble than we are because of EAB and Dutch elm disease. So this rule states that no one tree species should make up more than 10% of a municipality's urban forest. No genus should have a share larger than 20%, and no single family should make up more than 30% of the urban forest. And this rule of thumb, has become widely known and adopted, and it's most likely having a very positive effect on urban forest structure and diversity. The 10-20-30 rule, however, does not have a specific focus on the benefits to citizens provided by urban forests, just the diversity of species. The 330-300 rule is about equal access by people to trees and green space. It recognizes that we need to bring trees and nature all the way to people's neighborhoods, streets, and onto their doorsteps in order to capitalize on their many benefits. It's not sufficient to simply strive for a citywide tree canopy cover of 25 or 30%, because typically urban canopy will not be evenly distributed, and more marginalized populations usually are the ones that have less trees and green in their neighborhood. So we need to set a target for forest cover in Barrie, and we can't just look at our large green spaces like Sunnydale Park or Ardagh Bluffs. We really have to integrate green infrastructure into all places where we live and work so that nature's always within sight and easy access. So what are the rules? The first rule is that every citizen should be able to see at least 3 trees of decent size from their home. Recent research demonstrates the importance of nearby, especially visible, green for mental health and well-being. During the COVID-19 pandemic, people have been bound to their homes or neighborhoods, placing an even greater importance on nearby trees. That's right, even just seeing trees from your window can make you healthier. Studies have shown that views of trees give us positive feelings, reduce fear and anxiety, help our attention span, and block stressful thoughts. One seminal evidence-based study suggested that natural views had therapeutic influences on hospital patients, for example. They compared patients who had a window view out to greenery with those who had a view of a brick wall. Statistically significant differences were found between the tree view patients and the brick wall view patients on patient length of stay, pain medication use, and nurses' notes. Basically, patients with a view of trees were hospitalized shorter and required less pain medication. We need to remember that for over 99% of human evolution, we lived outside all the time. Inside as a concept is a relatively new one for our brains to get around. For the next part, it says that every neighborhood should strive for 30% cover. Who doesn't strive to be cool, healthy, and happy? Studies have shown that an association between urban forest canopy and better microclimates, improved mental and physical health, and reducing air pollution and noise locally. By creating greener neighborhoods, we encourage people to spend more time outdoors and to interact with their neighborhoods and neighbors, which in turn promotes more social health. Many of the most ambitiously green cities in the world, including Seattle and Vancouver, have set target for 30% canopy cover. At the neighborhood level, 30% should be a minimum, and cities should strive for an even higher canopy whenever possible. Finally, we should plan to ensure that everyone lives no more than 300 meters from green space that is at least a hectare in size. Many studies have highlighted the importance of proximity and easy access to high quality green space that can be used for recreation. A safe 5-minute walk or a 10-minute stroll is often mentioned. The World Health Organization recommends a maximum distance of 300 meters to the nearest green space. Any further, and people would likely drive or not go as often. Of course, it'll be important to work within our local context. The needs of the newly built suburbs in Barrie will be different from those who live downtown or in an older part of town. Good planning will be vital, and creative retrofitting may be necessary. Green spaces can also be linear spaces that double as cycle corridors or walking paths. But our streets should be places you go to, not places you go through on the way to somewhere else to find respite. The urban forest needs to begin at every person's doorstep, in every person's neighborhood, as a vibrant part of our community. In Barrie, there's not been a uniform canopy. There isn't a uniform canopy now. And in a city that's been growing as fast as we have, it would be really surprising if it was. Most of the opportunities to plant more trees are going to be found in newly annexed lands to the south and on private land, which is more than 70% of Barrie. But even with a big effort, it's going to take a lot of time and even bigger effort before we actually see the true benefits of any enhanced planting program. I think the importance of protecting the older trees can't be overstated. And I want to commend Kevin and Stephanie for the great PIC discussion on an enhanced private tree bylaw last week. I think it's a great step forward, but just a first step. All of this, talking about this kind of planning can be confusing, and which is why I like a very simplified, great communication tool like 33300. It's straightforward and oversimplified, true, but it's rooted in good science. There's been some initial interest in this rule from cities and organizations in different countries. Saanich has adopted as the first one in Canada to adopt as an official policy. We could be second. Using the 33300 rule will allow also for benchmarking nationally and internationally, as well as easy monitoring of progress. The rule is also easy to communicate and can generate interest and support among residents, politicians, businesses, and other key stakeholders. Applying the 33300 rule will help improve and expand the local urban forest in many cities, and with that will promote health, well-being, and resilience. And I'll end it there. And I'll open up for any thoughts or discussions.
That's great. Thank you so much, Andy. Wondering if you can stop sharing the screen so we can see each other on the bigger screen for the questions and comments. Awesome. Thank you. Okay, any comments or questions on Andy's presentation? Anne-Marie, go ahead, and then Kelly after.
Thanks. Some of my comments might relate to Kevin Rankin. Sorry, Kevin. I'm going to put you on the spot here a little bit. And thank you, Andy. I know that's a book I need to read. I think, if you want to pass it around, by all means, put me on the list. But a couple of things come to mind. So love to know because we've gone through the official plan, we've talked about the tree canopy and targets. Love to know your thoughts about how this applies, Kevin, or where you see opportunities, and or is there a next step we can even take in general from an OP and the work that you've been doing in the tree bylaw, but also around a formalized motion to council in any way that really just says, you know what, we've had funding to support beautification across the wards. I'm not sure what's set aside or what may or may not be considered next term, but is there a focus on tree planting that is reasonable? And one thing comes to mind, at least from a specific to trees and boulevard spaces, is always that my understanding, which could be wrong, is that it's kind of triggered by residents to say, I want a boulevard tree. And the city comes and plants it, and it's a great contribution to the neighborhood. But is there ever a way in which, considering the boulevards are city properties, we can proactively identify areas to infill trees, or look at approaches for infill in some of our green spaces? Loaded question, but how do we proactively get to that tree canopy and or look at how we can leverage council in this committee to really move planting forward?
So there's a few questions there. I'll start with the first one. So new subdivisions and streetscapes all get planted to the city standards or minimum number of trees required for each subdivision, site plan, commercial development, etc. So there are targets within those that would be, if you were projecting that planting to maturity of those trees well beyond 30% canopy cover. So we're met there in terms of the future development and as well as the natural heritage area protection processes that are involved in the secondary planning process. Like take the secondary annex lands alone, it's about 30% of that area is in protected natural heritage. It's not all forest, it's not all trees, some of it's wetlands and grasslands and areas that have the capability for us over time to plant, turn them into forests, etc. So that's, you know, long-term development, whatnot. When it comes to existing streets where there are trees, we do the same thing. We go down a street, if there's missing trees on that street as a result of, you know, comparing to our current standards for planting, we would go in and infill. We do that on a regular basis. We plant about 800 caliper trees per year, most of which go on streets, but there's probably 150 to 200 that go into parks. So same thing, we'll go into an older park, whatever it might be, say Huronia North, for example, and go in and plant up that, add more trees in the periphery and areas that just may not have been planted in the past, and it may be naturalized, so we don't want to mow it anymore. We'll put some more trees in there. So there are active naturalization processes taking place. And then if you look at the natural canopy development of a subdivision or a developed area over time, like the average rate now across the whole city would be 26.5% for residential zoned areas, but that includes a lot of new development that's less than 20 years old. So you're gonna have to factor in there developments of less than 20 years old probably has 10 to 15-year-old trees in it from the time of planting. So there's quite a bit of active growth just in a natural process, protecting those trees and maintaining and managing them and getting them to a mature size will make a huge difference as well.
Thank you. I think that's
a mixture
helpful.
of the
Yeah.
questions.
Yeah, no, and you handled that well, because often I'll just throw it on out there and see what sticks. But in general, is there anything through this committee you see as an opportunity at this time, or I would invite you in the future, of course, to kind of identify if there's any support up through council to kind of look at initiatives that might be outside of whatever you're able to do at an operational level, but to target kind of an opportunity that you see or a way in which we could approach infilling differently?
I think we're getting to the time period since, I guess, a couple more years, we'll be looking at updating our urban forest strategy and developing a little bit more detailed urban forest management plan. We have the canopy mapping. We want to look at what's happening over time with our canopy, our tree canopy. So that would be about 2023. We'd look at redoing that analysis and see if we're going up or down, where the problem areas are, and then look at those strategies for planting enhancements within direct areas that, you look at one ward might have 40 or 50% tree canopy cover, right? That's in great shape. Another one might only have 20%, and you want to go in and actively get into figure out why it's only 20% and focus your work on those areas.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thanks, Anne-Marie. Thanks, Kevin. Any other questions or comments on Angie's presentation? Forestry? Oh, right, Kelly, go ahead.
Thank you, Andy. That was really great. I've read that book too. It's really a great book. So thank you for that. So Kevin, what do you think about the concept of the 330, 300, and is it possible for us to use that as a measurement or guidance tool?
It's interesting. I'm not a real big promoter of rule of thumbs, because I'm one of those guys that lives in the weeds of details. So a rule of thumb of a certain percentage in an area that just may not apply, or might be so far below reality that you end up under planning or ignoring an area, because let's say it's got 30% in that area. So you say, oh, I don't really need to worry about it. I'm going to go tackle these areas that have 25%. It gets forgotten. Next thing you know, it's dropped. So yeah, I'd have to look at the details, particularly the 300 rule. I don't know where on average we would be in terms of meeting that 300-meter spacing for our existing developed areas. It would be tough to go in and retrofit an area to meet a 1 hectare green space every 300 meters. For future planning, it would be certainly a lot easier. Then there's quite a bit of argument too about the way we did our secondary planning process and protected 30% of the area for natural heritage. I mean, that's a pretty high number all by itself. So it'd be interesting to go through and do an analysis and see what it would look like.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thank you.
Andy, did you have something to?
Just that I do think that would be an interesting analysis to do, to actually take our green spaces that are over, at least about 1 hectare in size or so of significance, just apply a pretty simple 300 buffer around there, and then see how much of our land is not falling within that. I mean, that seems like a fairly easy thing to come with. And again, I understand what you're saying with the rule of thumb. I just like it because it can give you something to work for. We can also say, I mean, I think Anne-Marie, at one point you had asked me, you were shocked to find out that your ward had a very low tree cover compared to others. Because you have Georgian Mall and Bayfield Street and all. We explained that to you, but you're like, oh no. But I think this would be even more of a drilled down, not ward, because you can't really compare, the Bayfield Street to a residential area. They're very different things. But this would be from a residential area, how many people are not falling within that 300-meter distance? Then suddenly you go, okay, we know that we have to suddenly look at some more creative thoughts in whatever neighborhood that we're looking at. And I think it's going to be really important, as you mentioned, Kevin, is not necessarily in the new neighborhoods where we're kind of doing that in the planning process, but really when we're looking at retrofitting. And then, if suddenly an opportunity to create a corridor exists, now you can say, well, we have a reason we need to put that to green as opposed to turning it into a paved area, for example.
Yeah, very important points, especially as we intensify older neighborhoods of the city too. There's going to be more residents living in those neighborhoods, so we're going to need more access to green space for sure. I had a kind of a follow-up question. I don't know if Kevin Bradley, you're tuned in right now to this piece of the conversation, but I know in the past you've mentioned the possibility of looking at all the parks across the city from a master plan perspective. Is that something that is underway at all? I see an opportunity to look at that 300 rule specifically if we're looking at an overall city parks master plan.
Thanks, Councillor Allen, for the question. We have not started it. It's I think what we will be doing is finally putting it into the long range capital plan this year. It doesn't exist in the capital plan at this time because we've only started thinking about it in the last year. I think everyone's agreed. There's no argument that it needs to be done. So we have been having internal consultations with other departments. What we want to do is to shift away from a traditional parks and recreation master plan, which is heavily loaded on provision strategies, 2 arenas for this, 1 pool for this, to having a standalone park strategy that would look more at land acquisition strategies, stewardship models, different types of volunteer things, adopt the trails, adopt the parks. There's a far more in-depth analysis that we could do. And what we've seen in other cities is they are starting to break their master plans and strategies out into these kind of standalone but aligned strategies. So you would have a kind of a recreation master plan, a parks strategic plan, and then Kevin's urban forest strategic plan that would all be combined or aligned, sorry. Yeah.
Okay, that's great. Thank you for the update on that. Any other questions or comments on the 300 rule? John, go ahead.
Thanks, Keenan. And I guess to Kevin Rankin, I'm not sure if you know this off the top of your head, or just wondering for the new developments, you're saying that we're designing them essentially to hit that 30%, or we think we're going to hit that 30% at maturity. Just wondering, do you know like how many years it takes for us to hit that? Because obviously as the trees mature, as we're going to hit the percentage. Do you have any idea of, at what point? Is it 20 years? Is it before we hit that point? Do you have any idea?
That's a fantastic question. And the analyst in my brain is screaming, and I'd love to do some math on that sort of stuff, because we have so many examples of subdivisions over the past 20 years or so that you could go in and do that kind of analysis and look at what point you expect that it would meet that minimum, and then plan backwards, right? You look at where that target is at what point, and then know how many trees you need to have in the ground at the time of construction, and at what point in time it would hit that target. Yeah, it would be a fun GIS analysis to do. But if I had to guess, I'm thinking probably you're looking at in the 25 to 30 year range. Would be just a ballpark off the top of my head.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. Okay, so a while, yeah. Okay.
Yeah, that's interesting. Okay, any other comments or questions on this? Sarah, go ahead.
Hello. I just wanted to say I think you did a very excellent job presenting this 330-300 rule, as well as including that health lens. You did a great job. So thank you for sharing that. And I also wanted just to flag that I believe Lake Simcoe Region Conservation Authority is also doing some research on the economic benefits of a variety of different natural assets, including trees. So that's something to look out for in the future to add to this argument. Thanks.
Thanks, Sarah. Great point. Sandra, go ahead.
Just a comment to go back to earlier, where you wanted to include sustainability for this committee. Park space, trees, vegetative ground is very important for climate adaptation. So I just wanted to throw that out there.
Great point. Thank you, Sandra. All right. And I know, and on Sarah's point too, but sort of the economic benefit of green space. I know when Council had talked about the private tree bylaw, that had come up in the debate around that. Because I think there may have been a study done out of Toronto where they actually calculated the value of each tree in terms of the economic impact. So that's something to look for as well. Andy, go ahead.
Sorry, just a thought. One of the things I saw out of New York, some artists went through and they literally put price tags on all the bigger trees downtown. And so as you walked along, you saw like a price tag on a tree to talk about its value. And it was like, I think those are the kind of little creative things that can really resonate with people. So maybe we should be doing that.
That's cool. That's like some guerrilla activism. Very cool. All right. Well, thank you so much, Andy. That's such an interesting idea to keep in our minds as we go forward. And if I'm not seeing any other comments or questions on that, then we will move on to the next item. Is everyone good? Oh, Anne-Marie, go right ahead.
So just a quick check-in. Is there an action there of interest at all about, and I'm not sure, Kevin, to add to your workload, but do you need something formal, and would it be of value to look at this committee identifying and ask to the city to do an analysis around a quick GIS mapping of that, if that seemed to be of value? I just didn't know with Andy's comments, if that was something that at this time, or if that's better to wait.
I think it would tie in together really well with the park master plan update, and we look at all of those things holistically together rather than one-offs. But
okay.
Yeah, it kind of the alignment, I think, in timing might see us doing that urban forest strategy update and the parks master plan update around the same time period. So
to leave it there.
Synergies together.
Okay, thanks.
Kevin Bradley probably's got a comment. His hand up there.
Yeah, just one thing to add. What we'd like to look at is something a little bit different, which is it's a landscape ecology science, which looks at patch matrix connections and starting to look at some of these greenways and different types of connections. So you're getting safe movement of animals, but you're also getting recreational assets at the same time. It's something that would be considered through that park strategy as well, and it would be a different type of thinking coming out of the OP. The new OP actually has very robust sections about greenways and about park classifications and hierarchies, and then also actually alternative land acquisitions, which I think the interesting part from what Andy is suggesting, especially in the existing boundary, is once we do whatever kind of lens we apply to the GIS analysis, we could then say, okay, to make this connection or to meet whatever rule of thumb, we need to purchase this for long range planning. We can come back to council with costs for an acquisition strategy. And there's always trade-offs through different types of planning with bonusing and other things as well, right? So a lot to digest, but it would be a year's worth of work to come back with something that I think council and staff would be proud of. So I just wanted to add that.
That's great. Thanks.
Sorry, Kevin, what was landscape ecology?
It's a science called landscape ecology.
Okay.
Yeah, it's just a way of identifying or thinking different ways of making connections, and it gives certain parameters about the appropriate size of patches to make them ecologically sustainable and function. And the matrices is the connections. And yeah.
Cool. Very interesting stuff. Thank you.
You're welcome.
So Anne-Marie, any other thoughts or, okay. All right, that's great. Thank you so much to both Kevin's and to Andy for that wonderful discussion. Andy, did you have anything else you wanted to say before we move on to the next item?
No, just that again, it was one of those things that I just thought was a very clever way of thinking about it, because again, I've been looking at this whole thing about your health and wellness related to trees, and this is a good way to sort of like frame it and make it easily digestible to understand. So I thought this would be a good committee to sound it off first and see what we think, and maybe now we all know about it, it'll spark something else.
Definitely. Yeah, that's great. Okay, and looks like Andy, you're up next again for the next agenda item. So Living Green Earth Day, tree and rain barrel. So go ahead.
Yep. So we are planning to have it on Earth Day, which is Friday, April 22nd, between 3 and 7. But we're going to extend it to the next day, Saturday, from 9 to 1. It will be at the Janice Laking Garden, My Local Leaf at 9 Churchill Drive. And what we're going to do is, so our original thought was that we wanted to do it as a tree fundraiser, continue with our rain barrel fundraiser, but really we're wanting to make this a little bit bigger. And so we've reached out to Bugs. We've already talked to that group and got a little subcommittee going there, checked with Urban Pantry, the community fridge is there. Way Station Plants is interested in handing out some free pollinator seeds. I'd love to get something going with compost education as well there. And then using the fact that there's a garden there. So first it'll be like, hey, there's a garden here. And then also it'll be maybe an opportunity for some programming. So maybe doing some small tours, a little how-to shop on some of the gardening techniques, composting techniques. I think the Three Sisters Garden with the Barrie Native Friendship Center, I wanted to reach out to them. So I thought it would really be a great opportunity to have people come in, learn a little bit more hands-on in a physical location. And we can do a lot with that. And then the other thought that we realized when we started talking about it, this would be a really great volunteer fair for us. So this would be an opportunity that we will actually promote it as something where, especially bring your teenagers that need volunteer hours down. You can sign up for Urban Pantry to help them with their good food box. You can help Living Green with some of our events and tree planting events, and then helping at the garden itself. So we'll actually create a little bit of a work party to get the gardens ready. So that's going on at the same time. So it's not just all talk, there's actually some action happening there. And again, people can use as a one-stop shop, sign up for all things green in the city that they can do. So we're sort of excited about this. I'm excited because I feel like this is the kind of thing that it might not be at this location, but I'd love to just, assuming this goes well, be an annual event. And maybe that is something that goes in the calendar. So every year you're able to know that you're going to have on Earth Day education about gardening, about pollinator plants, about switching your yard off of lawn. Those kind of things are all going to be part and parcel with this. And then the other thing I really want to do with this is I'm looking at getting the trees and shrubs. I'm going to see about making sure that the cost for them is lower than what you'd be buying at a retail outlet. So really trying to promote that idea of like, here's native trees and native shrubs. And then again, everyone will be receive a little information about how to plant, where to plant, that type of thing. And then I'm hoping to even have like a little demonstration on site on planting techniques. So that's it in a nutshell. It's still being, I would say it's half baked, like a lot of my ideas are. But I plan on baking it fully in the next few weeks. So if you want to know any more about it or have any other ideas on how we do it. And what I'm really going to be looking to the city for is helping with promotion, because the Janice Lake and Garden is in an industrial area. It's not visible. It's not an easy thing to find, and nobody knows it's there. So I got to figure out how to promote it. I'd love to get one of those right away signs done. I don't know how do I move forward with that and get that kind of approved. So that's it.
That's great. Thank you for sharing that, Andy. And sorry, my connection dropped for a bit there when you were speaking, so I wasn't any key details. But Sarah, I see your hand. Go ahead.
Hi, just a comment that may support the sharing of this event. Earthday.ca, which is the Canadian organization for Earth Day, you can actually submit an event to their webpage and they will have it on their webpage. So that's something that could be looked into.
Great suggestion. John, go ahead. And then Emery.
Just a quick question. So it's a Friday, is that what it is? Earth
Friday and the Saturday.
And the Saturday. Okay, great. Perfect. Thanks.
Go ahead, Emery.
And I'm wondering too if there's a way, and we can connect around the finishing the baking of this. With respects to, I was in conversations with the Legion recently, and they've got large space too. So if we outgrow that area, I love the intention around the volunteer drive and that piece, but also maybe on the promotion, if we can have a table or someone there. So I'm putting on my Communities in Bloom lens and that registration process that's usually in paper at the farmer's market. If we also maybe incorporate any ID about the plots that are not yet registered for the community gardens through entire city programming registration in, it might help to just naturally link to advertising it. I'm not sure if it takes away, but maybe we can connect on that.
Great idea. So Andy, as soon as there's more, it's more baked, let us know, and we can start sharing and spreading the word. And I know Anne-Marie or I or the mayor would be happy to share that during announcements at council meetings as well. We're happy to help. It's great. Anything else you you wanted from us or needed from us on that front, or? No? Okay, that's great. Well, let us know if that changes. Very exciting stuff. Okay, anything else on that before we move on to the next item? Not seeing anything. Okay, so the next item is active school travel. And Sarah, I believe you had requested this to be put on the agenda, so you can take it away.
Yeah, thank you. Christine Bushy just asked me to provide a quick update on the meeting that we had. So a few of the committee members got together and just kind of discussed the opportunities of in synergy with this committee and activities that the health unit is already engaged in regarding active school travel. And so Christine Bushy shared some resources on our webpage, which is On the Move. It's a campaign focused on active school travel, so getting kids and families to walk, wheel, or ride to school. And really promoting the use of those materials that are online. In addition to that, there's also materials that the committee can borrow from the health unit. So this includes flipper like flags that fly in the air, poster and A-frame stands, vinyl banners. There's also branding that we can share with the committee, so that's great. And there was also synergies with using these for the Bike the Night, which Anne-Marie already highlighted, as well as connecting with the wayfinding paths and flagging the distances between certain locations. So all of that was already highlighted today, which is really great to see those synergies. And then Christine Bushy also let our school team know that this conversation was happening. So if they had inquiries from their schools involved, they would just be aware of that. So there's 4 schools in Barrie that are part of the formal On the Move campaign, but we are able and encouraged to use the On the Move campaign to promote active school travel among all schools and children and families. And that is all for the quick little update I have.
That's great. Thank you so much, Sarah. Any questions or comments on the active travel work that the health unit does? John, go right ahead.
Perfect. Thanks, Sarah. Yeah, great update. I think that was a great meeting, and for sure keeping it consistent with everything is definitely the way to go. I'm happy to support that and do that. So yeah, so I was supposed to have a meeting last night actually with school, but they had to cancel last minute. But yeah, we're still sort of moving forward with that. And if anyone has anyone, if you bump into anyone they mentioned their school's interested in it, let me know. We can coordinate it, or happy to keep pushing that forward. I think we're sort of at a point now, if the committee agrees, that we can sort of start pushing that a little bit more. I know there's teachers were up to a lot before, but I think maybe it's at a point now where we can get it going for spring, hopefully. So if everyone's on board with that, I think we can try pushing a little harder there. Great.
Absolutely. It's a great reminder. Sorry, Sarah, were you about to chime in there?
No, just
sorry.
Thank you.
Okay. Anne-Marie, go ahead.
Is that a topic to create more space for conversation in one of our upcoming spring agendas? Just on that, and if it launches into something for our work plan tied to Bike the Night around momentum. I know we've talked about it with the Bike the Night on at a small scale, early concept, even around engaging kids in back to school in the fall before Bike the Night around safety tips, maybe a pop-up with Firebird, maybe some kind of safety reminders, and getting comfortable on the bike, and reminders that we can push out around promoting active modes, walk and wheeling to bike, but also another opportunity to engage schools and their students.
Yeah, absolutely. So sorry, just to understand, you carving out some extra time to discuss at a future meeting? Is that what you
Well,
were suggesting?
wondering, yeah, John, about the spring. Like, I know you're doing a lot of work around engaging schools. I'm reaching out to some of mine in compliment, but if there's a space where naturally that will come before we have a break for the summer, and maybe before I'm not sure if we're going to meet over the summer or not, but just something where we can have this conversation about maybe how to engage schools and students before back to school. And if there's a work plan initiative that this committee wants to take on around promoting kind of a pop-up event or some type of communication where we can actually like maybe even have different community organizations and city staff involved with us around tips and tools for safe back to school before kids go back.
Yeah, I think that's, I see John's hand. Did you have some thoughts on that?
Sure, yeah, I think that's a great idea. Like you're thinking before this, like for the spring to start, or sorry, the in the September first it starts back up. So getting stuff set up now for September.
Yeah, if there's a communication around, getting teachers involved before their summer break or identifying a location. So, I'll throw out East Bayfield Community Park and there's a small parking lot at the back. Maybe that's an off the road safe place to kind of have a pop up before school's back that we just know is happening. So it's not a last minute to organize coming right out of a long weekend out of the summer break, but that the public's aware that maybe there's a space to check out Firebird, to get a bike, to practice being on the bike, and just some reminders about fit for helmets, and then how to actually get to school safely.
Great, yeah.
Kelly?
Oh, there, I'm here. Yeah, I think that's great. I see this aligning specifically with the Bike the Night event. So, as part of that agenda as well. So these things will all kind of come together. The promotion for the schools and inclusive of Bike the Night. I see that as a synergistic connection, like really managing those two kind of side by side as we try to, promote the event. We will also be, capturing the back to school, the education piece as well. So I see those really complementing each other and working in synergy. I'm not sure if you guys agree, but.
No, agreed. Yeah. Yeah.
That's great. Okay, any other thoughts or questions on the after school travel topic? Not seeing any. Okay. Great. Okay, so we have, sorry, excuse me, my voice has started to really die out here. Okay, so Cycleberry plan. So the public engagement has started for the Cycleberry plan, which is exciting. Finally getting that work underway. It's going to be the first cycling dedicated infrastructure project that the city has ever done. So that's a big step forward. I'm not sure if, sorry, I can't recall if someone specifically requested for this to be on the agenda, or if this was more of a placeholder from last meeting. But Kelly, I saw you on mute. Was that?
Yeah, well, I was at the I think it was Brett. I was at the Public Information Center for the Cycleberry, and I have to say the engagement was really high. There was a great attendance and lots of great feedback. So I think this was Brett. He was potentially going to review, the feedback from the session. So I'm not sure if that's for the next agenda, but I kind of thought he was doing that, but I may be mistaken. And I see Kevin has his hand up.
Well, I'm sorry, only to let you know that Brett is off ill today and couldn't attend this meeting to provide an update.
Sorry, I may have gotten an email that and missed that, but thank you.
Okay.
Thank you for
You're
that.
welcome.
I appreciate that. Okay, but it's good to hear that the PIC went well. I have a question on that, Kelly, because I wasn't able to attend. Was there any like pushback on bike lanes or bike infrastructure? Because I know in other cities, well, in Barrie too, we do hear that sometimes. There wasn't any.
No, it was nothing. It was like, no, it was really interesting. No, there was a lot of great engagement around, why not? I want this, I want that. And, lots of great questions. And, it was great to have the consultants there, a really good consultant team, talk to us. And I really pushed hard on the route, because they talked about a route from Ottawa, right? Like Bell Farm connecting Ottawa, right? Which is right over that 400. That drives me crazy that I can't get over there safely, and Anne-Marie too. So I really pushed hard, and I emailed Brett again, and I said, no, we really need to figure out a route from Hamner and Livingston over the bridge to Ottawa. And because, we've got a lot of width on St. Vincent, and we need to figure that out. So Brett was very receptive to that email that I sent afterwards, because I was really adamant about, pushing that, because we've got to have some safe travel over the 400, whether it's an independent bridge that we need to push on quickly. Plus, there's that, I'd love to get an update on what grants we're applying for. That active transportation grant is coming up as a deadline. So I'd like to know what we are actually asking for, because you can apply for as much as you like. So I think that he thought that could be a part of that, in a sense. So no, it was really good. I think there was about 40 people or something on, which was quite good. So no, it was a really good, a good one.
That's really nice to hear. And thank you for pushing on that St. Vincent connection there over the 400. I barely feel safe walking over that bridge. Like, it's not a comfortable place to be if you're not in a car. So lots of work to do there. Any other thoughts on this piece? We'll hopefully get an update from Brett at our next meeting with some more concrete, maybe data and feedback from the public engagement, some info on the grants through the federal government's strategy, and hope he's feeling better by then. Okay, any other thoughts on this Cycle Barrie piece? Okay, and I'm seeing we have some time left in the meeting, so this might be a good opportunity for us to highlight any items we think we need to discuss for next meeting. And Wilf, if there's any sustainability pieces in particular you'd like to talk about in the future, now's your time to lay it on us.
Is it now or never, eh? I wonder if we can just bounce this around offline, Keenan. I was thinking about it a little bit as I was listening to some of the presentations today, and wondering whether on sustainability, whether we even want to carve that into a couple of different pillars, and talk about food supply. I think circular economy is part of that. Reusable plastics, that sort of thing, and of course the huge one right now that we're under a lot of pressure to tackle is climate change and GHG emissions. Whether we can look at just the different pillars that make up the sustainability piece, and how do we bring that into balance with active transportation, which is also a really important task. And I'm not sure I've got answers to that right now, but if you've got some time, maybe offline, we can bounce some things around and bring it back to the committee and see what the committee thinks.
Absolutely, I like that idea, and in conjunction with looking at that, the pending items on the Excel document and the draft work plan that the committee had previously looked at. I think that would be a great path forward. And a reminder on the climate change piece, the community energy and greenhouse gas reduction plan will be coming to general committee. I believe it's in March. Unless that's the last I've heard, it's in March. So that's something for this committee to watch out for, because we certainly need to make sure that plan's as strong as we can make it. and that we push for some concrete actions to back that up. Any other items? Anne-Marie, go right ahead. It's kind of an open forum opportunity.
Thanks, Keenan. I've got a couple, but I'm going to try not to eat the rest of the meeting time. I'm going to start this because I think it's really important, and I'm going to put Kevin Bradley on the spot. So we had a motion recently to council about pickleball. So this isn't about pickleball. This is actually about the first time I'm actually seeing deliberate, and I don't want to, and I in no way mean to be critical of other staff who brought staff memos forward, but I think it's really important for this committee to see we've got information that always comes to council, and there's always this tagline at the bottom that says, what is the environmental and climate change impact? And often there's a comment that there's none. And I gotta say, Kevin has kind of modeled the way here, and I was so impressed. And unfortunately, I wasn't able to speak to this item at council, but I do intend to, because Kevin went through pickleball because it's tied to green space. Everything from, and I would like Brandy to send this around because I think it's a really great example of where staff have actually done a meaningful review of this. So the whole piece here talks a bit about alignment of Barrie's climate change adaptation strategy and the work that went in to minimize the risk to structures and disturbances to existing natural heritage features to protect biodiversity and ecosystem functions. That was a lens looked at around a pickleball. Climate change emergency mitigation plan. It was also noted that new infrastructure should be targeting a net zero or near net zero standards, which require different deployment of solar PV. So, I mean, that consideration was taken around new infrastructure design. The City of Barrie Urban Forestry Strategy, alignment of those goals and to making sure there was no disturbance of woodlots to preserve the trees, canopy coverage. And then even went further to identify the Conservation Authority regulation areas of Lake Simcoe and Nottawasaga Conservation, also looking at the policies regarding development within Conservation Authority regulated areas, knowing that intensive recreational use has its own impact. So I want to say high five, kudos to Kevin for taking like this seriously, and actually the lens that you're bringing to city related impacts. And I think this is what we have been trying to champion and expect that this helps council at a municipal level of decision making understand impacts when we talk about development at any scale. So thanks, Kevin. I'm going to be sharing that back with comments to council. But I did want to say, yeah, I'm not sure how else we encourage this other than being able to point it out and say, this is actually what we expect to see rather than no environmental impact. Anyways, so sorry to put you on the spot, but I do really respect the time and effort that you put into that. And I think that that's really what the intention of our ask to staff around their considerations should involve.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it was really awesome to see, and it's a good model to follow for all departments going forward, for sure.
Now I'm going to say to staff, hey, did you talk to Kevin about that?
Yes, love that.
Yeah.
Okay, I see two hands. Sarah, was your hand up for a comment on this piece or something else? Okay. Kelly, was this on?
I just want to echo that because that's the first thing I noticed, Kevin, honestly, when I read that report. And, you know, I didn't say a word when I read the report, but I looked at those lines because I think it's the very first time I've ever seen it. I've read those, you know, staff reports before, and every time I look at that line, it always has blank space and it says zero, like zero impact, zero impact. So I was totally impressed by as Anne-Marie explained the details. So I do want to thank you, Kevin. It was like a real honor to read that. It was like, oh, somebody's listening and doing something. But I have to say, overall, the entire report was incredible. But that particular piece was just so thank you. And that's that's a real thing for other folks in the city to look at and say, hey, let's write it like this with true intention. So thank you so much.
I don't think we can hear you, Keenan, unless it's just me. You don't look like you're muted, but we're not getting audio on you.
No, I can't hear him either.
What about now?
Yep.
There.
Oh, okay. My headphones just came slightly unplugged. Okay, perfect. We're back. Okay. Emery, did you have anything else before we move on to Sarah?
Just next meeting, I'd like to add Communities in Bloom. I sit on that committee. There is a great synergy to what we do here. So we will be proclaiming 2022 as a year of the garden. We will have judges coming to the city. I'll send the link to that. I'm hoping members can review it, but that committee is meeting in March and would love to know if you've got ideas about how to align our interests. A lot of that focus also talks about tree canopy, green space, planting more gardens that align to sequestering more carbon, mitigating heat island effects in urban areas. So would love to generate some conversation I can bring back to Communities in Bloom, maybe for their April meeting.
Okay, fantastic. Okay, Sarah, you're up next. Go for it.
Hello, I'd just like to share 2 recent resources that have been published. Health Canada has published their Climate Change and Health Adaptation Vulnerabilities Assessment. It's 700 pages, but it has a lot of great resources. There was the best experts in Canada in the field, ranging from Indigenous health, mental health, and then just highlighting those climate sensitive areas, as well as adaptation. And this is a report that is part of a larger project led by Environment Canada. And so please visit, I believe it's climatecanada.ca for all of these resources. Otherwise, I can send an email out. In addition, as of yesterday, the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change released their AR6 or 6th Assessment Working Group 2 contributions, which focuses on adaptation and mitigation. So those are 2 really great resources that I encourage everyone to look at. Obviously, they're very large, but there's policy summaries and briefing notes. So please take a look at those.
Thanks for highlighting those, Sarah. It was pretty jarring yesterday hearing the UN Secretary General, who's usually pretty measured and diplomatic, as the top diplomat in the world, calling fossil fuel companies the arsonists who are destroying our only home. We should all be worried and paying attention to that. So thank you for highlighting that. Okay, Eric, your hand is up next. Go ahead, and then we have Andy after.
Yeah, I was just to the discussion on the pickleball and the climate and other impacts being listed very carefully. I think any other application or form that comes in saying that climate impacts are none should be bounced back for a reconsideration, because there's almost no conceivable activity that doesn't have either negative or positive or mixed climate implications. And I think it is important, even something as simple as having a monthly meeting of people coming together. If you have it in a central transit accessible location, encourage people to carpool, it's less than having out at the edge of town and assuming everybody drives themselves. So even the most at first glance benign activities do have climate impacts that are often really simple to consider and address and minimize, or find a way to turn it into a positive. So I think that should definitely become a standard in some way.
Great point. Kevin, it sounds like you're starting a culture shift at the city. We love it. And perhaps that's an opportunity for our climate change coordinator that the city is hiring for to champion that, because Eric, you're right, everything is climate change related. Yeah. Thanks again, Kevin. I think when my sound wasn't working, I think I called you a rock star. So just wanted to make sure that got out there. All right, Andy, go ahead.
Just as we're highlighting things, again, the tree bylaw, PIC was last week. And if you haven't already, that survey is due on you have to the 11th, I believe. Yeah, March 11th to complete it. So I have been trying to champion as many people in Living Green, starting to make sure that they're engaging in this. And it was very well done. And I just wanted to also highlight that here in this group. That's it.
That's great. Thank you, Andy. Okay, any other announcements, things to highlight, ideas? Kevin, go ahead.
Just to add to what Andy said, if you missed the open house, the presentation is recorded on the website, and there's the questions we summarized from the PIC and put answers right on the website. So every time we get a new question, we're just going to update it, put the answer right on the website, and try to keep that live and as active as possible. So
That's great. Thank you, Kevin. John, go ahead.
Thanks. On that same note, so I had trouble watching this one on the YouTube account. So I watched it past. I was able to watch it on my wife's phone, but I couldn't watch it on mine. Did anyone else have trouble watching it after the meeting? Or if anyone else knows that, okay. If anyone else hears that, or Kevin, I don't know if you've heard that from anyone else, but I couldn't watch it on my own phone, and it's
so
I just been to my phone.
Yeah, they did have difficulties right after the meeting because they had it loaded up. Actually, communications loaded up during the PIC, so it would be live. But they had issues with sound and information coming through on the actual presentation, so they reloaded it back up the next morning. So could be just it was a version flip between, but yeah, I think they did load it onto YouTube link just because the file size is so huge.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Great.
I ran it this morning, was okay.
Okay. Any other future agenda items, things you need to get off your chest?
Okay.
Emery.
I'm not sure where this is going to go, but maybe I'm looking at Kelly. Kelly and I and another resident that's active. We were looking at things tied to pollinate berry. So we're going to reach out to staff and see where that fits, but I wasn't sure around when we can talk a bit about the future consideration of even the structure of this committee. There's lots of really great work happening, but whether or not a subcommittee fits, or how could a focus on some of those pieces that may take one angle over the other of our mandate at a more resident level and engagement level. So maybe we can bring that back, but would love to see maybe if there's a conversation about where some of the things in other municipalities that are taking off. I think Kelly identified like Pollinate Collingwood is one, and there's some other great examples. And so where do we structure that type of resident engagement and activation with this committee? I'm not sure if that's fair, Kelly, but love to chat with you about that.
Yeah, no, that's great. I mean, I see Guerrilla Boulevard gardens, and pollinator gardens that are connected with the Butterfly Way through the David Suzuki Garden. I know, Kevin, one of my ideas or one of my thoughts this year was to actually, hopefully with the city, coordinate a pollinator garden kind of at the corner of St. Vincent and Cundall so everybody can see it. I don't know if it's, asking Petro-Canada or just you guys, I'm not sure, but, or the Legion, I don't know. But I just think as an education tool, and this goes to Wolf's idea of sustainability too, right? When we're talking about carbon and carbon capture and pollination. So that Pollinate Collingwood is quite an interesting volunteer group that collaborates with the city. So I'm not sure if that could be a piece of bugs or it could be a piece of the city. I'm not sure, but I know, Anne-Marie, we were having those conversations, and I think there will gather a lot of interest and a lot of strength there for sure.
Great. Kevin, did you have something to add on that, please?
Would it, question to the committee, would it be helpful? So I'm actually interviewing Friday to formalize the parks coordinator position, where a lot of these partnerships and naturalization kind of efforts on city lands and sort of outreach and communication with land. Would it be helpful next meeting to have someone from my team, maybe even with Kevin's team, some of the joint projects, to just kind of talk specifically to pollinator? Maybe if it's Stephanie Weidman to come, and because she has a she has kind of 4 pillars that she's focusing on, which in terms of naturalization, connecting children with nature, urban agriculture, and I'm missing the 4th, I should know it. But I'm wondering, to the sustainability lens, would you like a quick update from her or a presentation and really start on Pollinator Week? Yeah,
I think that'd be fantastic. Yeah,
okay.
I think having that presentation, opening up our next meeting, if possible, or the meeting after, whatever
Yeah.
works for you guys, would be fantastic.
Okay, okay, great, thank you.
Okay, that's great. Andy, did you have something to
Yeah,
add?
just wanted, since we were just doing the round table type of thing at the very end, just wanted to let you guys all know that May is going to be very busy for us with tree plantings. There's going to be a bunch of activities all around the city around tree planting. Then in June, or sorry, in July, we'd like to do another version of Tread Lightly. So, Wilf, I know we spoke about that already. So what we did last year, again, in a COVID kind of situation, we joined in with Firebird Community Cycle and the EV Society. We joined up with the downtown open air Dunlop. And so we want to do that again. I think that was a good first step and something we want to be sort of planning for. So that will be just again, high level right now, putting that on everyone's radar, that we're going to look at forming a little bit of a subcommittee on seeing how we can build on that momentum again for this July. So I just wanted to put that out there now.
That's great. Great opportunity to cross promote the Bike the Night event as well.
Absolutely.
Fantastic. Okay, we're coming up at 3 minutes to noon. Any other announcements, ideas, agenda items? Anne-Marie.
I'm kind of bamboozling this, and I'm going to look at Kevin
That's
Bradley. I'm wondering if April or May, we've got an art installation that Kevin Bradley has been working on with our Public Arts Committee and local artists. And I believe we're trying to look at the possibility of that having an installation in April. So I'm not sure, maybe the next agenda, if we can give maybe a formal status update on that, and then see if that's something this committee might actually even want to, I'm not sure, Kevin, meet the artists virtually. It does have an environmental aspect and focus to it, but perhaps here, if it's not premature, maybe after, we can showcase the images and the context around the storyline about the environmental aspect and where we want this to be an attraction for also kids, schools programming, but also around nature and conservation and climate action.
Kevin?
Oh, sorry, if I could, yeah, it might, I would recommend maybe Carol Ann Ryan come to talk to, just to do the introduction for consistency, because she actually did the presentation with our information to the art committee. It might make sense for her to come, well, the both of us could come and talk about it. Because I have another meeting with her next week, I think. So I think it'd be better if the two of us did it together.
Great.
Got it on the list. That's fantastic. Kelly.
Sorry, just one quick question on that collaboration with the art installation. Kevin, I'm wondering, if we could potentially put a pollinator bed connection there as well, as an opportunity, just thinking how synergistic that would be, just as a suggestion.
Yep, no, great idea. And Kevin and I have already been talking. Some of the benefits are to expand the naturalized area in and around that installation. And Kevin's team just did an amazing job with a massive infill tree planting that you had talked about earlier, just adjacent to this location too. So it's all coming together in that spot. So
Great, exciting stuff. Okay, anything else from committee members? Okay, as always, thank you so much to all of you, and thank you so much to all the staff who have devoted their morning to helping us out on the committee. We appreciate your time so much, and feel free to reach out with agenda items to Brandon and myself. And exciting, I've got a good list going, and I'm excited. So thanks again, and we'll see you next month. Take care, everyone.